All right, welcome back to Right on the Edge. And due to recent news, I figured we would use part of today to do a tribute on Ozzy Osbourne. Uh, he's a legend, obviously, in rock and roll. A lot of history of this guy. Overall, has always seemed to be a very decent man. Um, with obviously a history of like drug problems and the like, but still a decent man. Like I grew up after his heyday, of the like after his heyday, but at a good time to see like the Ozzy Osbourne show and things of that nature. So let's, without further ado, you know, let's watch this video on him.
When Ozzy Osbourne was just a young man growing up in the United Kingdom,
You know, what he looked like as a young man versus what he looked like today is very different. He was a handsome young guy.
his dad said to him, "I've got a feeling about you, John Osbourne. You're either going to do something very special or end up in prison." It turns out Ozzy did both. Not only
Hey, why stop? Why stop at one? Am I right?
did Ozzy become the most revered heavy metal icon of all time, he also ended up in prison before his 18th birthday. Growing up in a post-World
Before his 18th birthday is a lot earlier than I expected.
War II era in Aston, Birmingham, Ozzy didn't appear to have many prospects or opportunities as a young rebellious man. One of his first jobs was working in a slaughterhouse. He spent his first 4 weeks throwing up on a daily basis as he had to cut open the stomachs of dead animals, which he says he eventually got used to during his
It's amazing what people can get used to when they're put in that environment. This is another fact I didn't know. Yeah, Ozzy Osbourne just started off as a working dude.
18 months of experience in the abattoir. Although Ozzy seemed to be on the right path to holding down a stable job and becoming an average working member of society, he found himself unemployed after beating one of his colleagues several times over the head with a large pole for making fun of him. This was Ozzy's first taste of chaos.
That's wild. That's wild. But kind of to be expected, I guess.
And he seemed to enjoy it. The same thirst for chaos, however, would land him in prison before he turned 18.
So come 1964, Ozzy had found a job that he actually enjoyed, which was working in a slaughterhouse. However, he got fired from that job about 18 months into it for having an altercation with one of his colleagues. He didn't really want to go back to that job or any job, I don't think. And I think this next part of Ozzy's life really determines the path that he was set to go down. He decided to try and be a thief, and there was a shop at the back of his
Yeah, he's like, why not? I'm just gonna try it out.
house that he tried to burgle a few times. On the final attempt, I believe a television fell on top of him, so he wasn't a great burglar, and he left
Well, to put it bluntly, yeah, he wasn't a great burglar.
fingerprints all over the place as well. About a week later, the police turned up, and it turned out Ozzy had used a pair of gloves without any thumbs on them. So he just left fingerprints everywhere, and he went to prison.
Good try, buddy.
Ozzy grew up in a part of Birmingham called Aston, which didn't exactly give him a ton of opportunity. He spent most of his nights either trying to find money to buy a pint down his local boozer, or being thrown through shop windows after getting into fights. According to Ozzy, one fight left him so badly injured that he had a chunk of one of his tattoos ripped out, and he spent most of the night in hospital. Luckily,
Man, that's a crazy fight.
Ozzy learned how to tattoo himself in prison so he could easily ink himself again if he found the urge to do so, which he did often.
One of the first things I heard on the Ozzy Osbourne show was him being like talking about being rebellious and stuff like that. And he was like, if I'd known how popular tattoos were going to be, I wouldn't have got any.
The first tattoo Ozzy gave himself was a pair of smiley faces on his knees. He said he did this so he could cheer himself up whenever he was on the toilet. With
Do you think it worked? Made me laugh a little bit.
very little job prospects to look forward to, Ozzy had to keep his spirits up somehow. He would
guess
soon
so.
start to look towards music for that opportunity and hope. After Ozzy was released from prison in
Man, that was... I forgot how good that sounded. The difference between his voice, his speaking voice, and his singing voice is intense.
1966, he started to promote himself as an experienced lead singer, despite never being in a band.
Hey, he's experienced, okay? Don't forget.
Even so, he placed an advert in a local music shop. The advert simply read, "Ozzy Zig needs gig. Experienced frontman owns own PA system." A few weeks later, a man came knocking
Did he actually own his own PA system?
on Ozzy's door, replying to the advert. This man would be Geezer Butler, who would later become the bass player for Black Sabbath, although at the time, neither Geezer or Ozzy knew this was going to happen. Even though the Osbourne family didn't have a great deal of money, luckily for Ozzy, his father took out a loan to buy him a PA
Wow. Yeah, good dad, man. He's just trying to make sure his son was successful, I guess.
system so people would take Ozzy seriously. Although Ozzy had just met Geezer Butler, his to-be bandmate in Black Sabbath, this wasn't Ozzy's first band.
By this point in Ozzy's life, we're talking between, I think, the years of kind of 1966 leading up to about maybe 1968, 69, something like that, around Ozzy being 19, 20. His first band was called Music Machine.
Hey, man. Why not try?
According to Ozzy, they never played a single gig. They generally just kind of hung around the pub, got drunk and talked about being big and famous. And he was in another band as well with Geezer Butler called Rare Breed. But by the time Ozzy was 20, he actually decided to just quit everything. And he just gave up. He took his advert down in the music shop so that no one else would come and ask him to join a band. And he just didn't think it was really going to go anywhere. He didn't think singing was for him. He didn't think being in a band was for him. Even though he dreamed of, being the fifth Beatle and maybe becoming the next Fleetwood
It's amazing to me how old Fleetwood Mac is, too.
Mac, he just gave it all in.
Although Ozzy thought he removed the advert from the local music shop and he was never going to sing again, a few months later, two strangers turned up on his doorstep.
Take that, Ozzy. You didn't even know, but they knew.
These two strangers and Ozzy would change music forever.
And we were looking for a singer, Bill and myself, the drummer, and we went round the music shop and we saw this ad, Ozzy Zig requires gig.
Props on him, though, man. No fucking experience, pretty much, and he's just ready. He just comes out the gate ready.
Tony Iommi and Bill Ward turned up to Ozzy's house and spoke to him about the advert in the music shop. Even though Ozzy thought the advert had been taken down and he was ready to give up on his music career, the three ended up talking about music over a few beers and decided to form a band. Not only was this the last chance Ozzy would probably get at becoming a full-time musician, but the same was also true for Tony Iommi. He was in a band making money called Mythology until some members were busted for drugs, which meant that Tony had to move back to Aston. Being busted for drugs back then was a lot more of a big deal, even if it was just marijuana.
Yeah, I imagine it was probably some hard time.
The three teamed up with Geezer Butler and Black Sabbath were formed.
Hey.
Before Before the ominous name Black Sabbath entered the scene, the four were initially called the Polka Tulk Blues Band, and they wanted to play deep, heavy South blues.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
Even though Ozzy was a huge Beatles fan, and according to Ozzy at the time, they were all blown away by the latest Fleetwood Mac record.
I can't help about the shape I'm in. I can't sing, I ain't pretty, and my legs are thin.
Not exactly a precursor for the invention of heavy metal music. When Black Sabbath released their first single in 1969, the UK charts were heavily dominated with pop and blues music by bands such as the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Marvin Gaye, and even Frank Sinatra. Although Black Sabbath knew they wanted...
I mean, you know, to be fair, man, when you're competing against those legends, sometimes you just gotta find something else to do. Like, shit, you don't go to Jesus say, hey, I'm the son of the Pope, as if it's the same thing.
...to write songs about horror and the occult.
It's from the netherworld, a vampire, a burdalak, Black Sabbath, as ancient as...
Their first single was a cover by a band called Crow. Whilst the song had an ominous name, Evil Woman, it was still quite poppy, by Black Sabbath standards anyway.
I see the look of evil in your eyes.
Despite this, their debut self-titled album would mark the dawn of a new musical era, the birth of heavy metal. This debut album by Black Sabbath landed them a number 8 spot on the UK charts in
That's a really fucking cool album cover, though.
1970, and it spent 42 weeks in the UK chart altogether. Ozzy Osbourne would spend the next decade fronting the first ever heavy metal band in the history of music, Black Sabbath. Not only would he go on to release some of the most influential albums of all time with Sabbath during their early years, but Ozzy Osbourne was also now firmly set on a path of destruction and chaos, with an incredible 40-year solo career as Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness. In 1970, Ozzy would be launched into the world of touring, and Black Sabbath would spend the next 8 years with Ozzy being taken around Europe and North America. During this time, Black Sabbath would be supported by bands such as Van Halen and even Kiss. During the same year,
That's crazy, man. It's amazing how many big bands were from the same decade, but I guess it was just like the evolution of music in this direction. So they were like the first to name in the game.
Sabbath would release one of their most influential albums of the decade, Paranoid. Not only this, the very presence of Black Sabbath, as well as Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple in the early 70s, opened the doors for bands such as Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, and Motorhead, who would all help to spearhead the new wave of British heavy metal movement in the late 70s. This is a true testament to the importance and influence of Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath when it came to the foundations of heavy metal.
I didn't know that they opened the gateway for those other bands, to be honest with you. I thought that they all came out around the same time. But like I said, I'm not from that decade, so this is news to me.
Despite the almost overnight success of Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne's career was about to take a drastic turn for the worst when, after years of touring and recording with his fellow bandmates, in 1979, Tony Iommi, Bill Ward, and Geezer Butler decided it was time for Ozzy to go, and he was fired from Black Sabbath.
Now, him being fired from Black Sabbath is also news to me. I thought he quit.
So my separation from Sabbath, I thought it was all over for me. I thought, I was probably end up back in a factory in Birmingham.
Just that phrase, Blizzard of Oz, it means so much.
Yeah.
You look at it and you go, oh my God, what's this? Ozzy's back. Brilliant.
Now we're
Dude, Crazy Train is one of the most phenomenal songs ever. I love his story about how he found the guitarist for that too.
entering Ozzy Osbourne's solo career, his debut solo record, Blizzard of Oz, and an iconic era for rock music with the discovery of Randy Rhoads.
That's him. That's the guy.
Despite the fact that Ozzy was about to spend the next 4 decades becoming the biggest metal icon on the planet, his dismissal from Black Sabbath nearly destroyed him.
Yeah.
After being fired from the
Dude, he was living his dream and he thought that, man, he thought he was going to have to go back and work in a factory and stuff. Dude, probably like fucked him up.
band, Ozzy
And they was people he thought were his friends.
thought his dream of being a rock star was over, and he spent the next few weeks locked in a hotel room in Los Angeles, drinking himself into oblivion, along with the usual excess Ozzy had become familiar with when it came to substances.
Yep.
Not only was this a defining moment in Ozzy's life, but he was also about to be saved by his future wife, Sharon Osbourne, known at the time by her maiden name, Sharon Arden.
Are you crazy? I wouldn't go in the room with Dad. It'll end up in my back. Just for fun.
In a
Just for fun.
recent behind-the-scenes video, the actors that played Ozzy and Sharon in the music video for Under the Graveyard gave some insights into Ozzy's struggles at the time.
Came to the hotel to die. He didn't have anything else left to live for.
It was a very sad period.
That's crazy. I didn't know he intended on killing himself there. That's crazy.
I remember leaving there. I locked myself in a hotel room for three months, just getting smashed out of my brains every day, you know.
During Ozzy's near-fatal binge during his time in the Los Angeles hotel, Ozzy was introduced to not only his future wife, but to something that he'd never really experienced before growing up in the cold depths of the industrial city of Birmingham. He was shown pure affection and tenderness. After surviving the 1970s,
Yeah, everybody deserves that at least once in their life, don't they? That's how endearing.
the 1980s would see Ozzy Osbourne release 5 solo records, including his debut Blizzard of Oz. However, it would also see him in handcuffs on more than one occasion. His guitarist would be killed in a freak plane accident,
Oh man, what the hell? Oh, you poor bastard, dude. I'm sorry.
and he would be labelled as a madman for biting the head off a live bat on stage.
Well,
After
Well, to be
Sharon
fair,
had
he did
managed
do
to
that,
clean
right?
Ozzy up and
He
help
did do
him
that.
secure a record contract, Ozzy started to look for a new band.
I do remember this fucking part of the video. So cool.
Ozzy would team up with Bob Daisley, Lee Kerslake, and Randy Rhoads, releasing 2 incredible albums just 1 year apart.
Yeah.
Blizzard of Oz in 1980 and Diary of a Madman in 1981. The 1980s were a great time for Ozzy as he was able to bring his musical ideas to life with Randy Rhoads, something he never had the opportunity to do with Black Sabbath. They simply didn't give him the creative outlet he so
Dude, I bet they shot themselves in the dick after this one, didn't they?
desperately desired.
Ideas that I'd had, which I couldn't musically put across to Black Sabbath, because they would never give me the time of day to try and explain myself.
During 1981, Ozzy went out on the Diary of a Madman tour. This is also when he started to hang out with Lemmy Kilmister of Motorhead. Lemmy was somewhat of a new challenge for Ozzy, as Lemmy seemed to be able to drink even more than Ozzy could.
It was crazy.
Ozzy once said, "I've never seen that man fall down drunk, you know, even after 20 or 30 pints. I don't know how he does it."
Ooh, he has a good liver.
Motorhead even toured with Ozzy Osbourne during Ozzy's early solo career, so you can imagine what kind of chaos they must have caused together.
Yeah, I
Not
can
only
imagine
would
it.
this lead to a lifelong friendship between two of the biggest names in metal, but they would also work together on several songs over the years. Probably the most infamous being Hellraiser, with Motorhead and Ozzy both releasing their own version. Although Ozzy's solo career was making him a superstar, something he dreamed of being his entire life, his relationship with Sharon started to fall apart as they began to argue constantly, largely fueled by Ozzy's substance addictions.
Well,
Not only
that's
this,
good.
tragedy would strike the band with the untimely death of Randy Rhoads.
Jeez, another guitarist gone, man.
According to police, the three were on an early morning joy
Oh, well, maybe.
ride after staying up over 24 hours, while some members of the Ozzy Osbourne band slept in their tour bus parked next to the house. The other three buzzed overhead, circling the bus 3 times. On the 4th time, they didn't make it.
Some would say Randy Rhoads was years ahead of his time in terms of his guitar playing. Even Ozzy Osbourne to this day is still incredibly grateful he was given the opportunity to work with Randy in the early 80s.
I truly believe if he hadn't have got killed when he did, he would be up there with the fucking... He was fucking phenomenal.
Randy Rhoads even co-wrote Crazy Train with Ozzy.
One of the greatest, one of the greatest songs of Ozzy's career.
One of the most iconic riffs of all time. Despite Ozzy,
I don't understand you can you can listen to that and not be excited, bro. It's just like, jazzes me up.
losing his friend and guitar player just days before in a tragic plane crash, Ozzy decided to continue the tour, all in the name of rock and roll and in honor of Randy Rhoads.
All I can say is, in the last week, guys, people out there, I've lost 2 of the greatest people in my life. But it ain't gonna stop me because I'm for rock and rock and roll is for the people. And I love people, and that's what I'm about. I'm gonna continue because Randy would have liked me to continue, so would Rachel. And I'm not gonna stop because you can't kill rock and roll.
To be fair, with the type of people they were, he's probably right. He's probably right. What a weird picture, man. But I guess that was the thing, right? That was his gimmick.
The start of the 1980s was probably one of the most difficult periods in Ozzy's life. The loss of Randy Rhoads was devastating to him, and his relationship with Sharon was chaotic at best. Ozzy hadn't really taken a break from the chaos since his early days of fighting in bars before he even joined Black Sabbath. Not only this, Ozzy was married previously for over 10 years from 1971, a marriage he left to be with Sharon.
I didn't know that. I didn't know he had a previous wife. It's crazy.
So he really hadn't taken...
I mean, it's not crazy. It's probably completely normal, but it's just something I never knew.
Taken any time for himself to heal or get his thoughts together. There are even reports that Ozzy was committed to a mental institution to be treated for a nervous breakdown sometime during the early 80s, but even this wouldn't stop the Prince of Darkness.
What was that? Just watching this video about Ozzy Osbourne. Call Toby? Okay. I'll do it. Well, I'll do it right now then.